I really like this nice yellow touch on the blue. I think that's a really nice can you choose these colors?
I know. I sort of feel small victories when it matches something I'm wearing.
Oh my god, I was like, oh, and they give me one of these activates in your bag. And they were like, oh, you already have one. I was like, no, that was for my appreciation. But I could have snuck in. It was the right color. It was like blue, blue.
And your life is your spam.
Somebody should come up with like, pretty soon they'll be like, we'll come up with reusing, right? Because we're going to be wearing them forever, right? You may as well not one of them. I am too. Hi, everyone.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I know we have a time limit because of the press avail with the Germans, so we will get to as many people as possible. I just have a couple of items for you at the top. Today, the White House Task Force on Worker Organizing and Empowerment, led by Vice President Harris as Chair and Labor Secretary Walsh as Vice Chair, released publicly the report it delivered to President Biden that includes nearly 70 recommendations to promote worker organizing and collective bargaining. The recommendations include ways to increase private sector workers' access to information about their existing right to join or organize a union, a hugely important issue for the president. The president accepted the recommendations, and as a follow-up, the task force will submit a second report to the president in 6 months, which will describe progress and implementation and contain additional proposals for further action. Also wanted to note that today the Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, will be announcing that the Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities program, in which the Department of Agriculture will invest $1 billion in partnerships to support America's climate smart farmers, ranchers, and forest landowners. So these funds will go to projects that promote farming, ranching, and forestry practices that either remove carbon from the atmosphere or cut greenhouse gas emissions. And the investment is the latest Biden administration initiative aimed at combating climate change with a goal to cut the farm sector's greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030 and put the United States on a path to net zero emissions by 2050. Finally, I wanted to note I have a Team USA water bottle out here today and a Team USA pin out here today. As you all know, we made a decision, the United States, not to send a diplomatic or official delegation to Beijing, given the PRC's ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity in Xinjiang and other human rights abuses. And that was a clear statement and a clear policy made by our government. But at the same time, we wanted to note Team USA has our full support. We're behind them. We're watching from home. We want to thank them and their families for everything they have sacrificed over the course of time. Lots of athletes to watch. I'll just give a plug because I'm an Olympics-obsessed person. Nathan Chen, we're going to watch him. Chloe Kim, Michaela Schifrin, you've got lots of more chances. Anyway, we'll be rooting for our U.S. athletes, even as we made a very important statement about our concerns about Beijing's and the Chinese human rights abuses. With that, let's go ahead. Colleen, kick us off.
Okay, so regarding Dr. Lander, I wondered if he should have been reprimanded more strongly given the president's pledge on his first day in office to, fire anybody who mistreated their employees.
Well, let me just give you an overview of what we have done to date, and I know there may be more questions on this, of course, which we welcome. The president has been crystal clear with all of us about his high expectations of how he and his staff should be creating a respectful work environment. One of the steps we took early on in the administration was to institute a safe and respectful workplace policy across the executive office of the president, something that was done early on. It was because of this policy and this process that when the complaint was filed, a full and thorough investigation was conducted pursuant to that policy. In addition, following the conclusion of the thorough investigation into these actions, senior White House officials conveyed directly to Dr. Lander that his behavior was inappropriate and the corrective actions that were needed, which the White House will monitor for compliance moving forward. I'd also note that Dr. Lander also sent a message to his staff outlining some of the steps he's intending to take to build a respectful work environment, and certainly we would encourage those. And again, the senior team will be watching for compliance to these steps.
It looks like he's had a history of, possible mistreatment of his employees over a long period of time. How can you be sure that this reprimand will stick?
Well, I would just reiterate again that, let me start with the first part of your question. Each nominee undergoes a thorough vetting process as a part of their nomination and confirmation process. And of course, we look carefully to ensure each candidate's suitability for the role they're chosen for. Dr. Lander's record was thoroughly examined as a part of his confirmation, and he received bipartisan support, including final confirmation with a voice vote. But again, once we were made aware of the complaint, we launched a thorough investigation, and compliance with the recommendations will be required in this regard.
Go ahead. Thanks, Jen. On Ukraine, Zelensky's office said yesterday that a diplomatic solution seems much more likely than war. And then we saw Jake Sullivan say yesterday that an invasion could come at any day. Can you help us square the difference here and why there still seems to be such a stark difference in assessing the threat?
Well, what our national security advisor also conveyed during some interviews with a range of your networks yesterday was that we're pursuing a two-track approach, which includes deterrence and diplomacy, but that we are ready either way for whatever decision President Putin might make. And we don't have a new assessment of his decision and where he